In today's Entre Nous, we're talking about an icon of French culture that may actually be somewhat of a fraud. For more on this, I'm joined by Solange Mougin. Solange, what's this all about?
Well, we're talking about the famous squeaky toy, Sophie la Giraffe, or Sophie the Giraffe. There is no doubt that Sophie is and has been beloved for generations as the teething gift. But in early May, the investigative site Mediapart dropped a bit of a bombshell in the French toy world. And in its investigation, it found that Sophie is not actually made in France, despite packaging and a narrative that claims that it was. Instead, Mediapart found that it is made in China and has been for years. That Vuli, the company that makes it, has been hiding this, it says. It interviewed employees who claimed that Vuli would actually start up the manufacturing machines in the French factory only when inspectors and guests would come. It also found images from the Chinese factory that we see there. It sent containers, they say. The Chinese factory sent containers to France. And they even found memos, they say, of the Chinese company asking Vuli to come clean. But as of mid-2025, the toy was still being put in boxes with the logo Made in France. And I'll get into what Fabriqué en France or Made in France and what that label really requires in a minute. As for the response of the CEO, well, it quickly shifted. According to Mediapart, the CEO, Alain Thirion, was contacted multiple times by the investigative site. And then finally, on April 30th, he said that he was not aux ordres or to be bossed about by Mediapart, and that it was fake news accusations that were from a few who were trying to hurt the company. But then the tune changed once the report was published. Mediapart said that Thursday's denial turned into Monday's, well, actually. The CEO told AFP on May 4th that the giraffes have been made in China for some 30 years, and they arrive naked, they aren't sold with clothes. And they arrive naked in France, where they are finished off, or in essence checked and packaged. He also said that it's temporary, and then it was never a mystery. And actually, if you look on Sophie's leg, there is a number. If it starts with 33, it's been made in China. If it's a 30, it's been made in France. But this made in France packaging, it still exists, or it did as of last year. However, the new packaging says born in Paris now.
Well, all right, speaking of born in Paris, talk us through Sophie's origin story. It's been around for decades, and it's really the epitome of a French success story.
Every year, between 700 and 800,000 Sophies are sold. They're often as gifts to newborn parents. Since it was created in 1961 in Paris, 70 million have been sold in 85 countries. Hillary Clinton even once said it is the it toy. And the legend goes actually that it was born on May 25th, or the Saint Sophie Day. So it is about to be her 65th birthday. And actually, there was a much larger precursor to the 18 centimeter Sophie. In 1959, there was a giraffe called Zoe, but it was deemed too big for babies. Other reiterations, such as the 22 centimeter Mona or the bigger Cleo, they never really caught on like Sophie did. So for her 60th birthday, Sophie was even inaugurated into the wax museum, the Musée Grévin, where visitors could press her neck and have the squeaky pwet-pwet noise. Sophie has, over the generations, become an icon of affordable luxury, or a natural rubber toy that a baby can grab on easily and chew on as well.
C'était magique pour faire les dents.
It was amazing during teething. The memory of this noise, even walking on it in the middle of the night.
My sister got one when she was born. I did too. It's a bit of a tradition.
I remember my giraffe, Sophie. I think everyone had their Sophie. It seems like it. It's the toy that goes from generation to generation without any problems or hang-ups.
Now, Sophie's safety for teething has actually also come under question before. In 2011, the consumer watchdog UFC Que Choisir, they called out EU regulations about toys and said that while Sophie was within the toy levels, that it didn't meet the tétine or the pacifier ones, that there were traces of nitrosamines, which can cause cancer. Also, Le Monde wondered about the water in the French factory in 2013, as their factory is in Rumilly, in Haute-Savoie, which is a hotspot in France for PFASs or forever chemicals, and the groundwater there has been contaminated. Now, Vouly has repeatedly said, though, that their toys are tested and they are within EU limits.
Now, Solange, most toys sold in France are made in China or other nations in Asia. So is this discovery really that big of a deal?
Well, the made in France toys, they are an exclusive group. Less than 15% of toys sold here have the label, and consumers are willing to pay more for products that have it. In a lucrative toy sector, overall, it's a 4.7 billion euro industry, and one that is doing well and is growing. According to Mediapart, the producing of Sophie in China actually costs 4 to 5 times less than it does in France. So the math is relatively simple in regard to, as Mediapart calls it, the lie or the mensonge. France's fraud controller has opened an investigation for deceptive practices, and Vouly risks big here, 2 years in prison and up to 10% of its revenue, let alone the reputational damage to a company that brings in around 30 million euros a year, largely due to Sophie. So we'll see how that investigation goes. But it does bring up the larger questions of these origin labels. For made in France or fabricated in France, it is one, but it depends on the product, and it is not as significant as other labels, for example, like Origine Garantie.
Certainly fascinating about Sophie the Giraffe. What could be the end of a myth? That's our Solange Mougin there with Entre Nous. Don't forget, if you want to get a closer look at any of the other Entre Nous we've done for you, you can always check them out on our website, france24.com.